Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to Aspire 32. Over the years, we have done various podcasts and lecture series. Today's podcast is something again different compared to all other podcasts where we have spoken on career guidance. But today's guest is very special. I'm sure that as an endodontist or a general practitioner also, in many parts of the world, we use microscope. But in India or many countries, we don't know how to use microscope, or we lack the knowledge. Today, I have an amazing personality who has inspired me to work on microscope, and not just microscope, but to think differently as a teacher or individual. I welcome Dr. Siju to this podcast where we'll understand his journey, his perspective about life, and how things motivated him to teach microscope, which has benefited a lot of students and practitioners in India. I hope that it inspires you the way he has inspired me. Let's welcome Dr. Siju, who is microendodontist for many years, and he has a center in Bangalore and Delhi, which trains students and practitioners to work on microscope. Welcome, sir, to this podcast. First of all, thank you so much, sir. I understand how busy you are, but thank you so much for giving me this opportunity so that I can discuss some important things, some of your thoughts, and share it on my channel Aspire 32. Before going ahead, first of all, let me congratulate you that you have finished 10 years of your microscopic center. And I'm sure that you have touched a lot of students' life, clinicians' life, including me. I remember the day when I met you. It was very inspiring, and it did change my thought process. I'm sure it is a long journey for you too, from you where you started and where you have reached today. When it comes to the center, how does it feel, sir?
So Suresh, firstly, I need to congratulate you as well. I just heard that your YouTube channel has crossed 51,000 subscribers,
yes,
which is a huge milestone. So congratulations.
Thank
you also for taking the time and coming all the way from Belgaum and then doing this for me. Yeah, so I think it's a monumental effort, your channel, and I wish you continued success in
Thank you so much.
whatever you do. With regards to the training center, as you know, this is the 10th year anniversary, so it's a big year for us. And when you start something like this, you don't plan that ahead. The idea is that let's see where this goes, and before you know it, 1 year goes by and another year goes by, and then suddenly you realize it's 10 years and it's a long period. So for me, it's very satisfying, emotionally, professionally, because it's not something that I expected that would last this long. I could probably, in hindsight, kind of pretend that I had planned all this well ahead, but it's not true. The truth is that I wanted to do something useful, give back something to the profession, but I never thought that it would last 10 years and go in the way that it has done. But I'm very happy that it has, and then we are going from strength to strength.
Yeah.
And then now with the online course, we hope to reach a wider audience and take our message to a larger group of dentists, and kind of spread the message that it's very important to use the microscopes in everyday clinical practice for everybody's benefit, not just the patient, but also the practitioner and for the profession as a whole. I strongly believe that it's a cornerstone of progress. Not just in terms of technical superiority, but in terms of changing your whole lifestyle itself. It has so many benefits, microscopes. And you know this because you attended the course yourself.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
You yourself have been practicing,
Sure,
and kind of spreading the message to your students as well.
very true.
Yeah.
I try to learn it from YouTube channel and all, but I always tell my students after attending your class, your course, it is not about microscope, but I realize how important is the assistant who is helping you in the microscope. I don't think any other course actually focuses on that aspect. We only try to work alone, but it is your course which when I attend your course, you had a very little theory, but it was more of a hands-on kind of experience. And then I realized that what I thought was a microscopic practice is not actually microscopic practice.
Yeah.
But I'm very keen. I'm sure that now, since you have crossed 10 years, and now you might feel that okay, at the beginning you had not thought it will last so long. But I am interested in knowing that why did you decide to start this center? Because now in today's world, it is everybody knows that okay, we can start a course and it is easier to start. But maybe 10 years, 12 years before, I don't think it would be so easy. What inspired you to start with this center? What was the thought process?
So I guess the thought process is very simple. As you do something in life and as you get some sort of maturity, every human being should have some concept of what we call reciprocity. Okay, now what is reciprocity? Reciprocity means that from our childhood till now, in our continuous growth, if we look back, we have to be grateful to a whole lot of people and a whole lot of things which are not in our control. Right? Someone has done something good, and that's the reason we get to enjoy something that we do today. Now, if you look at dentistry itself, I mean, where did this knowledge come from in the first place that you and I learned in BDS and MDS and after that? Someone has found this out, and everyone who has done that also had a family, they had a profession, they had mouths to feed. So they could have just come, done their job, learned something, kept it to themselves, reaped the benefits of that, and then died and gone away, right? But these people were not like that. They were selfless enough to spend some time, to do something and give back something. Now that is reciprocity. Now for us, when we are dentists, and how do you and me earn our living? We primarily earn our living by performing a procedure on patients, and then we charge a fee for that. And that's what puts food on the table. That's what gives us a comfortable life, right? Now, if we are enjoying the benefits of a comfortable life based on the knowledge that's been shared by someone who didn't have to share, but they did, then we should have that reciprocity to give something back. So the saying that I'm very grateful for what I've received, and I've received this because of someone who planted trees in whose shades that they wouldn't sit, somebody else would sit. So you and me are enjoying the fruits of that.
Yeah.
So if we don't have reciprocity, then there's something wrong with us. People who just keep on taking, they don't want to give anything back. There is something fundamentally flawed with that. So if everyone starts becoming like that and they have no concept of reciprocity, then the world will eventually be doomed because each one is just bothering about themselves and not about anybody else. Now, I know it sounds very philosophical, but that's the truth. And I believe that in every human being, there is this small part of reciprocity. In whatever, the extent may differ from person to person, but most human beings have some form of reciprocity built into them. So, yeah, long answer to a short question. I do have some reciprocity, and I always want to give back something to the profession, and I give back in the way that I feel I can give back. And everybody can give back in their own way, in whatever methodology that suits them. And this is what suits me, according to the person that I am, because the rest of the modalities that I look at, I don't feel compatible enough to do things in a certain way. This kind of path suits me, where I start something on my own, where I have no one else to answer to. So in other words, can you say we become what we call leaders without a title? So I don't have a title.
Yeah.
I'm not HOD or secretary or president or anything of that sort.
Yeah.
But it doesn't prevent me from doing something on my own. I don't need to ask anyone.
But I have this very important question, sir, which I'm sure I've been asking you from almost 1 year now to get this opportunity to ask this question. There are very less number of endodontists with so much of experience in instrument removal, microscope, everything. Did you ever think that you should join academics, maybe one day become head of the department? I'm sure you must not have thought it. That is why you chose this. But why? What was the reason that you did not? Because I'm sure maybe you had if you become an HOD, you would have control. At least assuming that you will have a control. That path also could have been chosen. Why is this path in?
So this is in hindsight. So when I finished MDS, like anyone else, I too wanted to, join a college, teach there, and then, like you said, the traditional path where you join as a junior lecturer, and then after a few years you get promoted, and then gradually, hopefully, 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years later, you probably become the head of the department, and who knows, maybe the dean or something like this. So this is a traditional path that is been there for ages, right? So, and we assume that this is the only path. And I too thought like anybody else that this is the only path, and I was going towards that path. Okay. So the truth is that while I was applying those days in 2001, I came to Bangalore, and I applied in a dental college, which I wanted at that time, and they told me there was like a 3-month waiting period.
Okay.
So I said no problem, because I didn't want to join just about any college. I wanted to join a college which is like fairly established. So they told me that I had to wait for 3 months. So in that 3 months, as I was waiting for this lecturer post to be empty, it just happened that, one by one, people started calling me, "Hey, would you like to work here? Would you like to work there?" And then before you know it, in 3 months, I became really busy in Bangalore as a consultant.
Yeah.
And when the time came to join as a lecturer,
You
the
are quite
financial returns that you would get being a lecturer was so different than what you would earn in private practice. Like, it was almost like maybe like 80% less in reduction in income if I
Yeah.
quit private practice and went back to being a lecturer. So at that point in time, it was purely financial. But in hindsight, when you look at it, it's probably a good decision. Why? Because, like you mentioned, there is a path, but that path is very long. So anyone who wants to change the academic curriculum or the way the academics is done, it's a monumental task. You know why? Because all of us have choices to play a game, right? But when you decide to play a game, every game has certain rules, and you have to follow those rules. Only then you're allowed to play the game. You want to play football? Football has some rules. You can't just say, "I'll carry my ball in my hand, I'll take it to the goalpost, and then I'll kick it in." You can't do that, because football has certain rules. So when you enter academics has certain rules. You can't just come there and be a cowboy from day one and say, "I'm going to do everything different from what everybody else is doing." You will not fit in there. Okay? So you have to play the game according to the rules. And then as you gain in stature, where there's a path is very long and you gain a lot of respect and people on your side, etc., 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 then maybe at some point in time you can bring about some changes.
Yeah, very true, sir.
But that rarely happens, because what happens to human beings is that we are creatures of habit. So if someone cannot play the game for 10 years, 15 years, and at the end of 10 or 15 years become a different person and destroy all the rules which they played all these 10 years. So what happens to human beings is, most people, when they start entering academics, they come with good intentions. They want to make a change because they are frustrated with whatever they're seeing, and genuinely they want to make some changes, and that's how they enter teaching. They said they come with good intentions. But what happens is, once you enter that system and you've been there for many, many years, a part of you becomes adjusted to that system. And then it's very, very, very rare. There are some, rare examples where people do something like that, but it's very rare. This is one problem. The second problem is that making a change in an academic environment is not just dependent on one individual alone. You need to have some good fortune where your vision coincides with the vision of few more people. For example, if you're the head of the department, then you need to have a few juniors under your belt who share the same vision. You need to have someone whom you're accountable to. Let's say in an institution, it's the dean who makes lots of decisions as to what consumables to buy or what equipment to buy. That person also needs to be on your side. Then the management has to be on your side to approve of all these changes that you're planning. So all these coincidences, all the stars should align in a line, and only then you can make a change. One person alone cannot do that.
Difficult.
Right? So
Yeah.
it's doable, and there are some people who have done that. I don't deny it. But the variables are a lot more than a path like this, which I have chosen, where the variables are not many because it's just one person. I decide whatever I want to do. And it's just a question of me finding the resources. Now, how do I find the resources? That is the tough part. Because again,
I wanted to ask you that question, sir. Now everything is available quite easily.
Yeah.
Maybe so many, like you have so many microscope brands available today.
Yeah.
When you started, there might be only few. There was not so much of social media presence. What were the difficulties in the beginning of your journey when you thought that, okay, now I want to teach this? That was your vision. But what were the difficulties, and did you change anything? Okay, this is what I have thought, and with the time, did you change anything in the course, or things got better?
Well, let me put it this way. There's a famous saying by Rumi who says, as you start walking on the path appears, or something like that. I think it was, as you start walking on the way appears, or something like this. Okay, so you start walking. You don't really know the entire path, But
Yeah.
as you start walking, new ways start appearing in front of you,
Okay.
and you start traveling on that. So no one really has I don't have a concrete idea as to the whole path from here to there, but I have some idea. Like when you start in, say, 2014, you start, okay, I have some idea what I'm going to do from 2014 to 16. And then in 2015, you feel something else. So that 2016 gets extended to 2017. And in 2017, something else happens. And that, this is how it usually moves. You have some idea, but not the whole picture. And then things start happening. Regarding microscopes, again, look, I mean, when you have some vision like this, it depends on how strong your convictions are. So again, Nietzsche said, right, if you have a strong enough why, then the how will take care of itself. So the why is important. Like, why are you doing this? And how badly do you want to do this? If you have a firm conviction, then things start falling into place from somewhere or the other. There is some kind of mystical force with regards to these things which are unexplainable. Once someone really has conviction that they want to do something like this, then something happens which makes that possible, the execution possible. So we started with what? Just one extra microscope, which I purchased with my own money just for training. Which means I already had an existing microscope. And when I reached out for people for a training center, nobody supported. None of the microscope companies supported. I mean, I sent emails to everybody I knew. Nobody supported. And then in the end, the extra microscope which I bought was with my own money. So both the microscope was with my own money. And we started the course. Okay. And then finally, I had some extra money because by the time my career was moving forwards, so I had little more savings to spend. And even when we started the microscope training center with 6 microscopes, I paid for all 6 of them. Nobody gave me anything for free. So, but then once you start doing, courses, and then you start generating, I mean, people who come for courses start buying microscopes, then everybody starts getting interested. Then all people come forward. Then they will say, we'd like to help you out, or whether you want to do some modification on the scope, or if something goes wrong with the scope, they're going to replace it or something like that. You get some benefits. But this come afterwards, right? Nobody comes in the beginning with a red carpet and say, do this, because they don't know the outcome as such. The way they see it is that some dentist is asking for free microscopes. Why should we give? That's how it is. Very true. So most of them will give you some discount or something if you're buying multiple units. But that's about it. But once people start seeing results, then yes, there are lots of people who come forward. But by then, it's a bit too late, because where you need help is in the beginning to get this thing moving forwards. I remember in the beginning, we had a lot of people visiting the academy and looking at all the tools there, the microscopes, the backfill devices, the down packs, everything. And they were asking, like, how are you going to get returns on this? So the answer on this was, like, people never ask these questions to some of our people, some dentist friends of ours who were 10, 15 years down the profession. They buy a Mercedes or a BMW. Nobody goes and asks them, how are you going to get returns on this, right? They buy it because they love it, and they're not looking at how this thing is going to get returns. They just spend a huge chunk knowing fully well that this will deteriorate. Why? Because it's something they want to do. So I have no interest in anything else. I don't have any interest in cars or apartments or anything else. So these are my cars. I remember this incident where somebody I knew came to the center, and we were having this discussion about, I think he was planning to buy a Mercedes or something like that. So I remember I brought him to the training center, and we had like 6 microscopes. So I took him from one end to the other and said, the first microscope, I said, this is my Toyota. This is my these two.
Was he able to correlate it? Was he practicing microscope? I think your friend.
No.
Because unless what I feel, sir, unless somebody exposes you to these thoughts of working on the microscope when they don't see, understanding is very difficult. I had read it. I forgot this phenomena, sir. But there is a phenomena where once you buy a blue color car or a particular brand car, you start seeing only those kind of. And I think it's pretty much happens similar to it when you are learning.
Absolutely.
And that is why before meeting you, I had different thought process, because trust me, I have met very few people who have such a larger than life thought process, positive thinking. you know that there is always lot of negative and very less amount of positive in life. So meeting such people, I think that is when you start thinking. Otherwise, we are always there in that same thought process.
So there are two thought process to this. First question you asked was the larger than life kind of image that we project. A lot of people think, and the second is the power of positivity, looking at the good side of everything rather than the bad side of everything. So as far as the larger than life concept goes, it's usually in the minds of the people who are observing these things, right? At least this is what I have seen. Whenever I've had some image of some of my heroes, or heroines whom we looked up to in terms of our profession, whom I used to idolize, and when I eventually meet them person to person and I spend some time with them, I realize that they're just as human as anybody else. They have their own faults and things like that. So most of the time, this so-called larger than life image is in the minds of the beholder, not in reality. So when you get to know whoever this person is, someone whom you look up to and you feel, oh, this person is doing so many things and it must be like something that I cannot do. But once you get to know this person for a while, you realize that they're no different from you and me. It's just that they put in some more work or they have some methodology which has given them results. So whatever any human being has done, virtually any of us can repeat the same if we just do the work that they have done. So that's the answer to the larger than life kind of image. There is no such thing. It's just a perception. The second thing is, we were talking about positivity. Now, the way we look at it is, in any given topic, it is impossible for us to know everything, all the facts about a given topic. You name it. So when it comes to non-technical things, let's say positivity or how we approach a situation, in the absence of absolute certainty that you and I know everything that there is to know about something, we should always take the approach that suits us rather than that what doesn't suit us. We have that freedom. So if something is looking at some way and we have the option to look at it positively and negatively, we can choose to look at it positively because we don't know all the facts. So in any given situation, there's at least 50% of the knowledge that are not in our domain. We don't even know about these things. So because we don't know 50% of something in a given situation, we choose the approach that suits us the best. And the approach that suits us the best in any given situation is always a positive approach. Like, what good is it for anyone if we look at something in a negative manner? Nothing's going to happen. So you might as well approach it in a positive manner. Because the truth is that you and I don't know the entirety of that particular phenomenon. So in the absence of absolute certainty of knowledge about anything, we choose what works best for us. And usually what works best for us is a positive attitude, because good things do happen when you approach something with positivity rather than negativity. So that's the way I look at it. Yeah.
Yes.
One has to be rational, but always positive. Let's look at what's the best we can do in a given situation and then push forwards.
Yeah.
And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, then we do something else. That's
Very
how.
true.
So that's my answer.
I had this one important question is that you started your center after how many years of post-graduation, sir? Like
So post-graduation was done in 2001 and then the center was established in 2015.
Okay.
So the training center. Before that, I used to do some courses, I used to lecture for some companies, the usual stuff, which everybody does.
Correct.
But then there are some limitations for all those things.
Yes.
And then in the end, I mean, wanting to start a center is not enough. You need to have resources as well, right? So that's again, once the intention is there, intention was always there to start a center. But how do you do this? How do you get the resources? Where do you get the money from? This part I didn't know.
Yeah.
But the intention was there. And once the intention is out there, then the rest of the things fall into place.
But is it related to the way did you learn microscope in post graduation or did not learn? That is why you thought, or did you meet some people, or you started working on your own? Then you realize it is so beneficial, and I want to share it with all my students and practitioners.
So this again is a genesis. So you know how it is compared to how endo and restorative is now compared to what it was in 98. So in 98, when I joined PG, restorative was different from endo. They were two separate entities. They were not combined. I mean, the MDS is a combined course where endodontics and restorative dentistry, but it was very clear that endo is one thing and restorative is another thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So a person who enters the course at least me in my case, was I was under the illusion that I could just be really good in endo and not bother about restorative. So I made this choice that I am going to be a really good endodontist. I'm not going to bother about resto. And I kept all my focus on doing endo well. Okay, so I neglected restorative completely. So when I finished my post-graduation in 2001, I still remember the visiting card I made was Dr. Siju Jacob, endodontist. That is, I never mentioned anything about restorative, right? So, and once you take the call that you are going to be an endodontist, then the next question is you want to be a really good endodontist, right? So how do you become a really good endodontist? Now again, you have to select a path. Someone has already done it before you. So you select some role models. So I looked around for role models, and you want to aim high. So you look at some of the big names that time was Cliff Ruddle, Steve Buchanan, all these big names. So you look at what do all these people have as a common denominator is that they're all using a microscope. So I said, all right, if I want to become a good endodontist, then I probably need a microscope, right? So we put that in the back of your head.
Yeah.
Now again, so that decision is made. You want to buy a microscope. And once the decision is made, that's when I said all these mystical things starts coming into your way, right? So I made up my mind and said, I want to get this microscope somehow. And then before you know it, 2 weeks from there, one of the patients who lands up in your chair for endo is the managing director of Carl Zeiss at that point in time in Bangalore. Carl Zeiss has their head office here. And at that time, this person who came for a root canal was the managing director at that time of the Carl Zeiss India.
Yeah.
So I got talking with him. I said, I want to know if you guys have a microscope for dentistry because I want to get my hands on one. Why don't you have a microscope for dentistry available in India?
Yeah.
He said, we have one. If you want, you can buy it. It's just that nobody buys it. But if you want one, I can get one for you. I said, wow, okay. How do I know more about it? Then he sent someone from the Zeiss, and they sent me a quotation for, it was very expensive for me at that time. I think just the basic Pico was like some 7.5 or 8 lakhs or something like this in 2004, I think it was. Yeah. So I went with that quotation to the Canara Bank and I took a loan and I just bought a microscope blindly without any knowledge. So once you have this microscope and you've spent all this money, now the next question is how do I figure out how to use this, right? So and then unfortunately that's where you don't know where to learn it from. So then all this painful part comes, you go around asking people and you make a lot of mistakes. You go abroad for courses thinking they're going to teach you and you realize that all they do is put you under a microscope and observe it something directly with a tooth held in a hand, and you come back disappointed. So this process went on for almost a year and a half. I think the breakthrough came when I was able to travel to Netherlands, and I watched some good clinicians like Margari, Ron Fransman. These people showed me how they worked under a microscope.
What was different, sir? Like when you saw and what you were doing here, what was something which I'm sure now you are teaching to everyone, but what was thing which was missing?
Well, the missing thing is that we were taught from the earlier days that microscopes is not something that you use continuously. We were taught that you do endo routinely, and whenever you have some tough case, you're not able to find a canal, it's like you have a calcified canal, or you want to remove a broken instrument or something like that, that's when you bring in the microscope. And then you see and use it for that particular phase, and then you push it out again and go back to working without a microscope. This was the existing philosophy at that time. When I went to Netherlands and I saw these clinicians working, I realized that they were working continuously. They were not taking breaks. Access to obturation, everything was through the scope. But I didn't, that was exposure number one. But of course, these are busy practitioners, so they don't have the time to sit and teach you everything. The second breakthrough was my friend, very close friend, Venkat, CVN Rao, who's Venkat Kanakapalli. Are you aware of him? He's written this book called Best Practices in Endodontics. He had moved to New Zealand, and then he got in touch with this group called TDO, which is Gary Carr's group. And he started sharing the lessons that he picked up from Gary Carr. And that was my exposure to ergonomics. And Gary Carr, of course, his philosophy is like...
do everything.
It's like everything under the microscope, including anesthesia. So that was something radical. And then he had a methodology that this is how you need to practice. And then I started embracing that. And that really opened my eyes. And everything became easy after that. So it's actually Garikar, but then to reach Garikar, there was a whole series of events. So Ron, Marga, Roberto, and the other friend I didn't mention was Roberto, who was like whom I met in the earlier days of Roots. Like we were all the same age, and we were just starting our practice. We are all very passionate about endo and things like that. Roberto had moved to Netherlands and joined Ron Fransman's practice. So he also helped me out a lot. And then I got influenced by all these people. And then Venkat moved to New Zealand and he got in touch with TDO and Garikar and then started sharing the information he had learned there. So there's all these inputs put together and then you start moving because it depends on whom you surround yourself. Like, so I was always surrounded by with these people who are all doing exceptional endo. And then once you surround yourself with so many people like this, then sooner or later you start moving up. The other big influence was an email-based group called Roots. Not the Roots that we know now. There was an email-based group started by a Canadian endodontist named Ken Sirota those days. And Ken had started this email-based group, and those days the internet was very young. So it was there wasn't as much noise as you see now. So it was like an email-based Google Groups types. You know, like every time you want to put a post, you have to mail it, and then people will reply on that thread.
Okay.
Yeah, something that people probably won't even know how to do now. But
I don't think I can do it.
Yeah, but it was very good.
Okay.
But the thing is that because the internet was young that time, there weren't a lot of people actually doing that. Okay. Especially from India. So when you start documenting some cases and putting it up there and asking for help, a lot of these people are willing to help. Yeah. So we kind of leveraged that part where there's not much noise and Indian endodontist reaching out for help. Is not that common. So in the early stages, people were very helpful. You know, I even got flown to Netherlands for a Roots conference where the entire expenses were taken care of by, donors, where they said, okay, we're going to take like 12 people from different countries, free of cost. They fly you down, pay the registration.
Does it exist now also,
no,
sir?
It was only on those days.
Okay.
So in those days, people were doing all these things, helping out. Again, reciprocity. Yeah. They were doing well, so they wanted to do something for the profession. So this was their way of doing something for the profession.
Do you think people are doing this without expecting today? Do you think
there are reasons, and people do that with reciprocity, like I said. So this reciprocity is built into human beings, and when people are doing well and they get benefits of the profession, most people want to give back something back. So they have that inbuilt in them, and these people were very genuine that way. Everybody, including like Gary Carr and Ken Sirota and even Cybron Endo those days, I think there was a guy named Bob Cannon, Steve Jones. All these people, I think they were very, they came forward and they were always helping out. You know, huge ways for no returns at all. I mean, I remember in Netherlands, Ron Fransman gave me his apartment to stay for a week. Marga took me to her practice, spent a day. Like for what? I mean, she doesn't get anything by doing that, right? Yeah. So, but she did it anyway. Roberto received me at the airport. Took me around with him, showed me entire Netherlands, literally like spending days with me, like for what? But people help each other. It's just like one of those things. And they do it because they want to, because they've been helped by someone, so they want to reciprocate. So they just pass it on, so I think I was benefited by all those things, and that's how we grow. Yeah.
You must have been really proud, that time you met all those people and they are so amazing. Yeah. And I'm sure because of all these people, it has an impact on your life, and you also developed that thought process. Of course, I am a big believer in e-content. As you said, sir, in academics, it is played by the rules, or there are set of rules. Yeah. And you have to discuss one topic for 1 hour. I truly believe something. If you can convey the message in 15 minutes, why do you have to spend 1 hour for
Exactly.
But it has, things are changing, but 5 years, 10 years for one change, which I think maybe in your center now you want to do, you can decide it within 6 months.
Exactly. It's nice you brought this topic up, and this kind of ties in very well with what you are doing, right? Now you have 51,000 subscribers, right? Which means you have an audience of 51,000 people. Yeah. And sometimes when these things are online, people don't realize how much is 51,000 people. 51,000 people is Chinnaswamy Stadium in Bangalore.
Okay.
Right? So when you give a lecture on YouTube, Chinnaswamy Stadium full of dentists are listening to you. Yeah. People don't realize this. How
it
much?
doesn't. I
Yeah.
understand.
How much can a
Completely
lecture hall hold?
Yeah.
500, 800, 1,000, right? Usually
Yeah.
not more than 300, but let's put the extreme. In a mega conference, maybe 800 people. That's all.
Yeah.
If you're invited to a huge national or international conference and you give a grand lecture, there are at the most 500, 600 people in the auditorium, not more than that. But you put a YouTube video, invariably there's like 5,000 people who have watched that
Yeah.
easily. And you have 51,000. So the views are even more, right? So people don't understand this, and that's where times have changed. And this is what we call the ball is moved where everyone has power. It's not like before. In the days, let's say you and I had finished our MDS 30 years ago. Okay, not even 30, like 20 years ago. 25, okay, let's be fair. So if you and I had finished let's say I finished my MDS in 2001. Okay, let's say you were also finished with me. And we were starting our careers. And we want to be known because we want to teach, and we have this ambition that I want people to know me.
People,
okay,
yeah.
you want to be recognized. Okay, what are our options? The only options you have is A, you join some institution and then you become the HOD, so people know, oh, this guy is HOD there. This is one way. Second, you publish a lot of papers. You publish paper after paper after paper, and people come to know because every journal you open, you see Suresh Shenvi et al. And say, oh, wow, this guy is amazing. So many papers he has. This is another route. Third is you get invited to all these lectures. Okay, people call you, hey, can you come and lecture to this conference? Can you come and lecture this conference? So if you keep lecturing at many conferences, people see you everywhere and they get to know you. This is a third route. Fourth route is you start competing for positions in associations. You become, I don't know, EC member or a secretary or treasurer or president or whatever. If you're a president of so-and-so society, you become known. People will say, oh, he's a president, he's a secretary. So these are the traditional routes. So if someone didn't follow any of these routes, that person will never be known. He or she will be obscure. This is how the model was 25 years back. Now it's not like that. Now you can just bring out a laptop, record a content, upload it on your YouTube channel. 51,000 people know you already. You don't need to ask anyone. You don't have to care about any of these systems. You don't have to publish a single paper, but 51,000 people will know who is Suresh Shenvi. This is how life is. So that dynamics have changed. The power has transformed from institutions or organizations to the individual. Anybody who has the time and the inclination and an internet connection and a laptop and a decent phone can upload content on YouTube and spread the message. They don't need to bother about anything else. But yes, it requires effort. It requires certain dedication. It requires certain systems. It requires certain commitment, discipline, all these things. You put up a video, in the first video, maybe 5 people will click like, and 3 of them will be your family members. So you get discouraged, right?
Yeah.
So you have to get through this phase.
Yeah.
You keep on uploading content and nobody cares. And then after the 10th or 11th video, you'll say,
it picks up.
It picks up, but nobody knows. But nobody knows when that trajectory is.
Yeah,
right? So it's very disappointing if you keep doing this and nobody cares. And then, sometimes there's 0 likes. Even your father and mother doesn't click like. So it's like, what is happening?
Yeah.
So it's not a straightforward path. But the good news is that if you want to say something, you can say. Who's stopping you? You only have yourself to blame. So this is what we say, give yourself an award, right? So back in the days, again, another we see in our feeds, we see a lot of dentists, posting with awards. And there's a lot of award rackets, like they approach you and say, pay $20,000 and we give you this award.
People do apply for it.
Yeah, you can apply. I get emails all the time. We've decided to make you endodontist of the year. Pay us like $20,000 and we make you endodontist of the year. I mean, people pay. Why? Because they want recognition, right? It's because they feel that if you are endodontist of the year, people will know you. But tell me something. Do you even remember somebody who was outstanding endodontist of the year 2019?
Then why are people doing it?
People do it because they are following the old model, because this was the only way to become known 25 years ago.
Do you think by having the awards in all these awards, does it help your practice, or is it about your skill? Because now young practitioners, I feel many times as a young practitioner, we are not aware what really matters in the practice or life itself. So they see that, okay, some people are doing this, and maybe if I do this, I will get more practice, patients will be more. Do you think in long term it really matters? What is your experience in long term? What does matter in the practice?
So it's like this, Suresh. If awards make a difference, if that award is genuinely given by someone in appreciation for what you've done, right? But this is not an expectation, right? You do things because you love doing it, and it matches your conviction in life. You want to do something because you want to do it, and that's it. You don't really care whether people are appreciating it or not, you get an award or not. That's secondary, right? You just do it because you want to do it, and you do it for an extended period of time. And then if someone notices it and they want to gift you an award or something like that, that's fine. But you need to be aware that you earned your stripes, and someone is given you this award, but that's just an outcome of what you've done, right? And who knows that? Only you know that internally. So people believe and start acting based on their own internal compass and what they believe themselves to be. Now, you know that you've paid for an award. You cannot fake your way through it, because your actions will match what you believed in. And you know that you've paid for it, so you will not behave in a way that matches you being the best endodontist of the year. But you've actually spent your 15 or 20 years and become, your actions match that of someone being the best endodontist. And then someone gives you an award. Then your actions will match that award, right? Because you've put in the hours and you earned your stripes, right? So the awards should match the actions that you've put in or the work that you've put in. And then, yes, it makes a difference, right? So, but otherwise it doesn't make any difference. But so it's best. That's why I said it's about the medal you win. That's why we say give yourself an award. Awards are recognition which boosts your confidence, because you feel, okay, my peers have appreciated me, so maybe I'm worth something. And then once you are given an award, then you start behaving according to that award.
Yeah.
So somebody made a statement, give yourself an A. I think some teacher, I don't remember who, used to tell this to his students. I think this was a music director, I forgot his name. So he was teaching music in some academy, and he used to tell all his students at the beginning of the year, before you do something, I'm giving you grades in advance. So he used to distribute A grades in advance.
Okay.
Saying you're a grade A student. I've already given you A grade. Now you go ahead and do it. Just assume that you're an A grade student and do things which an A grade student does. Because what he's trying to tell is you start behaving as though you are an A grade student. You internalize it. Mm-hmm. And when you internalize it, you start behaving accordingly.
Yeah.
That's why we say give yourself an award. You don't need anyone to give you an award. You give yourself an award. You start saying, this is me, this is who I am, this is how I'm going to behave in a certain way. And you keep doing that. Sooner or later, your actions will match what you think of yourself. So it's like that. So that's my take on these awards. Buying doesn't work, but you can give yourself an award.
Very true, sir.
Yeah. And then start behaving.
This is what I always, whenever I meet you, you have always told me something new.
Yeah.
Which is very difficult to grasp. Whenever I am, nowadays I'm reading, and some of these thoughts, somewhere I read, but meeting you once ends up giving me so much of energy, and that is precisely the reason that I wanted you to be on Aspire 32.
Yeah.
Congratulations for the new module of online teaching for microscope. I'm sure everybody is super excited to apply for it. I'm not sure whether you have opened it to...
no, it's going to be launched tomorrow. So
amazing.
Big day tomorrow, and I'm actually turning 50 tomorrow. So I decided let me launch it on my 50th birthday.
Amazing,
something
sir.
new.
Yeah.
I did launch it to the private group.
We went
our own Microscope Training Center alumni. We launched it 3 days back, but only to them.
Okay.
Because I just wanted them, because they've already attended it, and most of the information there, our students already know. But I did launch it to them, and it was quite overwhelming. A lot of people purchased it, which I didn't expect, because I thought they already knew most of this, but a lot of people bought it, and they also gave me some feedback, and I realized some of the shortcomings which I rectified in the last few days. So the good thing about online courses is that it's evolving course, right? It's not what can you call static. It's always
keep
moving,
on adding.
right? So you can always modify, you can add modules. So that's the nice thing about online. Even if somebody pirates it or whatever, they cannot pirate the community, and they cannot pirate the ongoing resources. So what we have in mind is the online community is built after someone buys the course, which means there's some commitment. But once you buy the course, the ongoing community support, that is what is important. So this is the goal, get people in by buying into the online, because there should be some commitment.
Yeah.
And once someone is in there, what happens? So you ask me, what is the reasons why a lot of people don't use a microscope? I think the main reason is, first of all, they think it's very complicated. That's the message that's been given, right? So our first goal is to break down that barrier, that it's not that complicated. It's very simple. So we break it down in the online course, that this is how a microscope is. These are the parts of the microscope. These are the changes you need to make in your operatory.
Yeah.
This is how we do each procedure. And you know that in India, and most of the practice that we see are not only endodontists. Endodontists already are using a microscope. So telling the endodontist to buy a microscope is a bit like preaching to the choir. They already know it's important. But my take is that it's not just endo. It's the other things, like how to do an oral prophylaxis, how to do restorations, simple things, examination, a patient consultation, how can you do under the microscope? Basic things which every dentist can do and take advantage of, and which is what we are seeing in all our students, right? They come initially to learn endo, but 2 years later, they're doing everything under the scope, right? So that can be translated. So first thing is, we try and break it down and say, guys, microscope is not that difficult. It's easy if you follow these things. And that's why the online course comes in. And then what you need, the second thing is, you need to surround yourself with like-minded individuals, because otherwise, again, you lose enthusiasm.
Yeah.
So that's where the community helps. If you suddenly see 20 people like you who are using, or now 200, 300, 400, 500, 1,000 dentists who are in that community, and everybody's using the scope, then you get motivated. Hey, that person is doing it. If they can do it, why can't I do it? Like that. Then you feed off each other's energy, which is what we've been doing last 10 years. You know this. You've been part of the WhatsApp group.
That WhatsApp group is very beneficial.
The problem with WhatsApp groups is that there are limitations, because it's an infringement on someone's time. Not everybody wants to be on WhatsApp all the time. So it has certain limitations, and the amount of data, it's not searchable.
Yeah.
So if you lots of good information in the last 10 years, how much of information our students itself have given out. But if you want to search for it, it's not available anymore, because it's got lost in the whole traffic. So there is no archiving of any of those information. So in a group, that's the advantage. In a community, which is what we are trying to build, is you can archive these things. So if someone puts up information on, say, camera settings, we archive that. The next thing you search and say camera setting, you will have like 20 PDFs, which 20 different people have posted at different times. You can just access that.
Yeah.
This is the beauty of a community. And that's what we are trying to build, a community. It's very simple, but difficult, because you need someone who's enthusiastic to keep doing this week after week, month after month, year after year. Okay. So it's not an easy job. Someone has to be really enthusiastic. And I believe that I have that enthusiasm. So this is why I ventured in it. But let's see, time will tell.
So how many, so you will be keep adding the videos in this section?
As of now, we have 63 modules.
Okay.
And 63 lessons, rather, which takes you all the way from what is a microscope, what are the parts of the microscope, what parts do you absolutely need, what are the parts you can add on later on, how do these help in your everyday practice. Then we move on to your operatory, what is ergonomics, what is patient position, what are the things in your operatory you need to modify, including your X-ray machine, your chair, your stool, and everything you need to get started. Once you get started, then we break it down. How do you do a clinical examination? How do you examine the maxillary right quadrant? How do you examine the maxillary anterior quadrant? Like that, each part of the mouth.
Yeah.
And in each part, each section, we break it down, so that it's very simple. With videos, we break it down. So anybody, it doesn't matter who it is. It can be a fresh general dentist. They watch these, they will understand that. And then we give them support. Like whenever you practice, you have some problem, just shoot down a question. We guide you through that. So that's the idea. Where online, again, it's like you said, like what you're trying to do in your Aspire 32 is the reach improves. Otherwise, you have to go to each lecture hall and teach each person. And there's a limit for that. Like how many people can you reach?
Yeah.
With online, there's no shortage. Anybody who's interested just can do this from the comfort of your living room. And that's the beauty of technology. But it's not the course.
Unfortunately, sir, all this e-content also, many of the academic teachers, they don't feel it can make so much of impact. That is what I have found. And I always believe, like, all these courses, online course. Of course, there has to be self motivation. I think that is where this community, what
Yeah,
you are
yeah,
saying,
yeah,
or a teacher.
yeah.
But I'm very happy that you came out with this online course, which I'm sure it is available from tomorrow. Which websites are Dr. Siju?
Well, just look at, I called it SijuJacobAcademy.com.
Okay.
So yeah, it's Siju Jacob Academy. Or I mean, soon on, I think in the next few months, you'll probably hear a lot more.
Yeah.
We'll be putting up information on social media. We'll put lots of free information on YouTube. And then, yeah, the whole process.
So before actually meeting you, I used to search all those videos. But after meeting you, you had a one earlier website also. Is
We
it the
have,
same?
I mean, I have a blog, SijuEndo.blog.
Yeah,
We have a
you are
YouTube
the
channel.
initial person actually to start with podcast also. I don't think people think podcasts are started now.
Yeah.
But after meeting you, I realized when you sent me the links, and you have so many videos about the treatment also, which I don't think is available on YouTube. I remember one case where you are drilling through the post.
Yeah. So this is the other thing, Suresh, and to an extent, I'm motivated by people like you. When I look at your YouTube channel, we have a YouTube channel as well. If you just Google Dr. Siju Jacob, endodontist on YouTube, you'll find my channel.
Yeah,
But the thing is that I haven't uploaded in ages. I think maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago, or even 6 years ago is when we uploaded those videos.
There is one video of calcium hydroxide placement.
Yeah. So
it is so popular on YouTube, so popular. So I used to wonder why sir never continued it.
Yeah,
You know?
so there was a mistake. Maybe I was not enthusiastic enough.
Okay.
But the funny thing is, that's the reach, So I uploaded these and forgot about it. I didn't even know it existed. I mean, I wanted to do something, I uploaded and I just forgot that I even put it there. Only some time back, my daughter just pointed out and said, Dad, you have 19,200 subscribers. Are you even aware? I said, what? Yeah, and then she brought up this YouTube channel and showed me that I have 19,000 plus subscribers. And I was amazed, like I wasn't even aware of it.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, so these 19,000 people are there, so I should maybe give them some more information. So yeah, I mean, it's one of the projects I have in mind to do the kind of videos that you're doing, to give some free information, maybe motivate some people to hopefully get into scopes. So yeah, this is one of the things.
But this organized e-content also, it really helps because what happens when you search on YouTube, that algorithm is deciding which video will be shown.
Yeah, this is a big problem.
Yeah.
Because it's not the information these days, Suresh, that's a problem. There is so much of information. The problem is the noise. How do you cut through the noise and get what you want? This is the problem. So this is what we can do. You and me can do this as curators. We can curate the knowledge, put it in a systematic place where people can access it. This is our job. So, and if you can do that, I think we are doing a big service to humanity and dentists in general, because it's not information. Information is available for everyone, but it's too much of a headache to get the information that you want because the noise is so much. So this is where I think we need to play our roles.
I'm sure, sir, it will be very beneficial to everyone, including the postgraduate students in many of the institutes where they find it very difficult to take a guidance.
Yeah.
This online course, I'm sure it is as close as meeting you. And once they go through this for fine tuning, again, there is always an offline course which is available. We have discussed a lot about microscope, all the difficulty. I have few other questions as an endodontist.
Fire away.
Because there is so much of confusion in this practice, and nowadays people do tell, I'm not sure whether I should say it, that you search for anything and there is the evidence for that. So there is a constant debate on would you believe on a larger taper instrument, large preparation or a smaller preparation? What is your personal opinion? Because I'm sure 15 years back you might have worked with a larger taper endodontic instruments. Now there are smaller tapers. Do you think does it make a difference? What has been your experience?
So again, Suresh, the problem here is that there is a kind of a lacune or lack of connection between, say, academics and private practice. Right? Private practitioners are going to clinics every day, doing work and just going home and whatever. The academics are doing the research paper and publishing. Right? Now again, sometimes there is no merging of these two. That's the problem. The academicians would say something And the clinicians, when they listen to that, they will say, this doesn't make sense because this is not what I'm seeing in my private practice.
Yeah.
What you said just now in terms of greater tapered instruments, right? So when we were in PG, we look up to heroes like, Cliff Ruddle and Steve Buchanan and all these people were disciples of Herbert Schilder. And Herb Schilder used to talk about these huge tapered preparations where it's not the apex, but what gets you to the apex, which is basically the taper, and then how many lateral canals you can pop, things like that. And so that's when we all started enlarging these canals, giving more taper, right? And then these rotary night eye instruments came, and pro tapers were like really popular, and I used to lecture a lot for Dentsply those days.
Yeah.
And so I am guilty as well of spreading this knowledge, and we will talk about F1, F2, which are like 7 or 8% tapered instruments, and if you push these large instruments in thin roots, they will break. Okay, it's like
you have seen it.
Yeah, it's a law of nature, right? So in the early days when we started doing this, all the papers were promoting, these instruments positively. And then in clinical practice, when I started in Bangalore and I was doing consultancy those days, which means I was working in multiple practices, and later on, when they started referring cases as well, we were ending preparations with F1, which is like 7% 20, and or F2, which was like, 8% 25 or something like this. Yeah. And then 2 years or 3 years later, the patients were coming back with vertical fractures. And then the practitioners used to say, we never saw this 10 years back when we were using 2% hand files. We are saying so many fractures ever since you started using this rotary. And then I used to defend myself, saying that, no, that's not true, blah, 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 blah. And we defend ourselves. But now I think the profession has come to their senses, and now everybody is moving back to conservative preparations, right? Saying that, there is no real justification with large tapers because, pros and cons don't match. So no one really knows what works, what doesn't work.
Yeah.
But one thing is for sure, if something comes at the expense of destroying more teeth, then there has to be a really good reason for doing that. Otherwise, we shouldn't do it. Okay, so I think that's where I would put it as. So if it's a vital tooth, I see no reason to make that into like an 8% taper, for what? So that's rational number one. Rational two is that if you haven't destroyed the tooth, then at least there's a second chance where you can clean it again. Yeah. But once the tooth is fractured, then you can't do anything. So I think conservation of tooth structure is paramount, and that's where the microscope comes into play, because without microscopes it's very difficult to conserve tooth structure, do a good endo without removing too much tooth structure. So this is where everything ties into microscopes. So now if we were to start debating, whether a 4% taper is good or not, there was a lot of debate on what's the ideal apical sizes. They give a table, 2504, 3004, 4004, etc., depending on the tooth. Yeah. All these kind of philosophies were on, and then we've gone and back and forth with sealers, this sealer versus that sealer, and then in between Resilon versus Gutta Percha. The whole rigmarole.
Again went back to
and people are going on debating these small things, but the reality is that it's almost impossible to keep that as a factor of, you cannot take a case and say, this case failed because bioceramic sealer was not used. It's impossible. So, so we just keep on debating and having arguments and, losing friendships. So most of these debates are pointless. The only thing is, what I would say is that when people have debates or make statements, I think we need to get used to something called uncertainty in endodontics. So when someone makes a statement, they should at least add this criteria saying, like, I think this is what it is, but I don't know. I'm willing to change my mind if faced with evidence that's against what I believe in now. I think this small, clause should be put in every statement you and I make about endodontics, because the truth is no one really knows. Okay, so, and this is my problem with opinion leaders and people who go on stage and make definitive statements. You do this and this will happen, as though they know for sure that if you enlarge to 2504, it will heal. But it's not what we see. Some of them heal, some of them doesn't heal. So
nobody knows
what the outcome,
what doesn't
right?
work.
But we know some broad outlines. If you do this, it's probably better. It's probably better to isolate under rubber dam. It's probably better to use hypochlorite. It's probably better to, do certain things in a certain way. So we make these statements based on what we feel is the right way to do things. But we cannot defend ourselves if someone comes and says, I have never used rubber dam, but I have 99% success. How on earth are you going to fight against this person? Because he will show you cases which has healed without using anything. Okay.
That's
So
quite,
there's no point in fighting.
yeah.
You could just say, yeah, okay, if it works for you, continue. But for me, this makes more sense. So I'm just going to do
It
this.
comes to our belief and what we have seen in the past. I
Yeah.
think that
So
is what you
the only way
continue.
to do that is kind of have your own recalls as a private practitioner with an open mind, without being invested in a dogma, saying that this is what I believe in. So everything, you know about confirmation bias, right?
Yeah.
So you have a bias, and most people, when they have a bias, they will look for evidence to support that bias,
Very true.
right? So it's very important that we don't get invested into a bias. So, like, you know that I've been preaching that everyone should use a microscope for ages. So my bias is that we need to use a microscope. But if someone comes and tells me I don't use a microscope and I'm fine, I don't bother to fight with that person, because maybe he's right. It works for them, so why not? It doesn't make sense to me, so I'm not going to use it. But at the same time, I'm not going to get into fights with this person, because that person is saying based on his experience or her experience. So everyone is free to make whatever statements they want if they can support it with their own experience, irrespective of what the data says, because the data again can be skewed, and we know this, right? I don't know how about you, but there was this hilarious episode where before we do our thesis submission or dissertation, you're supposed to make a presentation.
Yeah.
And I remember in our department, one guy, he was very innocent, and usually what PGs usually do, they make a presentation and they kind of have a hypothesis which way this is going to go, the results. And they skew the study according to that, right? So, but they don't say
Nobody
that.
wants a negative result.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to show it positive.
When you design a study, you already know what the result's going to be, okay? And you're looking for papers to support that.
Yeah.
And then you will skew the study and get the results that you want, right? But nobody admits this. It's supposed to be like what we call the elephant in the room, right? So, so this guy, he was very innocent, and he was giving a presentation of his study design, and he said, "This is my aim. These are my materials and method, and this is going to be my result."
So he announced it before.
Yeah. And he was suspended like for a week or something like this, because he was just innocent, and he just told that this is going to be my results without even doing the study. So a lot of people do this. So study designs can be skewed to get the results that you want.
Yeah.
I mean, it's common sense. And why else would a company give you like, I don't know, like $10,000 worth material if you're going to say in the end of your study that this company's instruments are not good?
Doesn't work.
It's not in their best interest, right? So I don't say that all studies are bad, but there is always an element for bias. So if someone, an institution or the department has received a huge amount as a grant or a support from one particular company, the bias is so difficult to overcome. Because someone has donated such a big amount to you, how can you say bad things about them? So it's human tendency, right? Yeah. So the bias is already shifted. The minute you take a large amount from a company, you already will form a bias where you want to say some good things about their products. So the only way you can do this is to not take that amount. But then if you don't take amounts from anyone, how is the department going to run? How is the institution going to run? So these are all elements where we have to take into consideration, and it's a fine path to tread on. And these are the challenges which every institution head or head of the department or administrator goes through. What to take, what to refuse, how do we sacrifice maintaining integrity without compromising on ethics? It's a fine line, and tilting towards either direction can destroy. On one hand, your reputation gets destroyed, and on the other hand, you don't have resources to move forwards. Everybody who's into research comes across these issues time after time. So I guess it's the good ones will find a way to stay on the middle path without swaying too much on either side.
Yeah.
And that's the way to look at it, I guess. So
since you have brought this topic of learning, I have one important question. I'm sure you are not. You are not in academics, but you know the curriculum of Endo.
Yeah.
You meet students. The students come to your center to learn. I'm sure they would. They won't say it to the teacher. Many positive, negative. Some people are still scared to tell teachers that this is not right, that is not right. I don't like this writing logbook. I feel so much of things needs to be changed. Based on whatever feedback what you have got, if you have an opportunity, like in a hypothetical situation, what do you think today you would change in cons endo or in endo in academics as a curriculum?
So it's very difficult, Suresh, to comment on the academic scenario. You know why? Because in order to give some sort of opinion, you have to be in their shoes first.
Yeah.
So I have to be a teacher in an institution to actually go through what these teachers are going through every day. And you are talking to someone who's never stepped into a
Been in
college
academics.
or an academic environment for 25
No,
years.
something. Let us assume you go back to as a student today.
So this is the disclaimer number one. So when we criticize teachers, we don't know what they're going through.
Yeah.
So unless we have a clear idea as to what difficulties they are going through, we can't really blame them because for all you know, they may be helpless in that environment, even if they have good intentions. So that's one disclaimer. The second thing is, as far as changes goes, I can only tell from a clinician's point of view.
Yeah.
As a clinician, I would look at what is working clinically and can we transfer some of those into the institution. Like when these students go out after BDS or MDS, can we instill some values which will be of use to them in private practice? So can we incorporate some of those elements in the college or not? I don't know how things are now, but I know for sure that when I was studying, none of those things, like the clinical world was completely different.
What are those things you think is very important for
A
practice?
is in terms of patient interaction. Nobody taught us finances, how to manage finances. Nobody taught us how to fix a charge for a patient. Nobody taught us how to evaluate our value per hour. Like as Indian dentists, if I ask you, what is your value per hour? You can't answer that.
Yeah.
Because we don't have this concept of working per hour. So if I were to ask you, what is your value per hour? You can't answer because we don't know. Whereas someone in the US or UK or somewhere, they can answer because they have this concept of paying people by the hour. So we don't know what our value is per hour. So if you are going to execute something, that whole concept, well, what is my value? How can I make use of it? Things like that. So I guess the soft skills, like patient interaction, chairside manners, finances, those kind of things, I would really like to have some sort of a curriculum on that as well.
Okay.
And second is technology or differentiation. Now we need to know this, and we tell this to all our students, right? These days it's very difficult to differentiate yourself in a private practice. Like how are you going to differentiate yourself? You put up a clinic in any city or any town or village or wherever it is, there's already like so many dentists there. Like, so how are you going to differentiate yourself? You have to find some ways to differentiate yourself. What are those ways? It's up to you to figure out what those ways are. Microscopes are a huge ways to do it because the truth is that not many people have still migrated. So if you know how to use a microscope and you start putting this in your practice and you become a microscope based practice, this is an amazing way to differentiate yourself. I mean, it's just one example. Like that, there are so many differentiators that you can make a list of. And some of those things can be learned in college because college is the best way to learn something new because you don't have to experiment in private practice.
Yeah.
The microscopes are a good example.
Very
the best
true.
time to learn microscope is during post-graduation because you learn it on the job. Right. So, but then for that to happen, the PG should be enthusiastic. The teachers and the HOD and everybody should be equally enthusiastic. And then finally, the management should support by buying the equipment. But then there are ways out of all these with a proper team and the proper faculty. If the faculty make up their mind, they can even overcome those barriers. Like for example, in the US, we are aware of many postgraduate departments where the postgraduates buy the microscope.
Yeah.
Right. And then buy in the sense, what they do is you have the stand and the light source and the optics.
Correct.
So the PGs have an option to either buy the whole unit with them when they go, or you take
Just the optics.
take just the optics.
Okay.
So someone who comes in buys the optics, and then when they just remove the optics with them and takes it.
So when they buy it, it will like अब पैसा डाला है तो फिर काम करना ही
Exactly.
पड़ेगा.
So you just pay the rest.
Yeah.
Let's say you are buying a microscope, which you invest in a beam splitter, the eyepieces, and all you're left with is the body of the microscope. And I don't know the objective. Also, I don't know. It's variable. What I'm saying is, remove the burden of some of the parts on the institution. Because the institution will spend on the heavy parts, which can't be transported that easily. And heavy parts are not the most expensive parts. The expensive parts are usually the removable
Optics,
parts.
all those.
Right? So the inclinable binoculars, the beam splitters, the camera adapter, these sort of things the postgraduate invests, and then they take it with them. So that is put as a criteria when someone joins the endo department. The department would put that as a criteria and saying, if you are joining MDS endo, you need to spend X amount and buy these things. Only then you can start your MDS. So the people are kind of forced into starting microscopes. There's a lot of US postgraduate departments functioned like that. So yeah, like that you can do out of the box thinking.
Yeah.
Where there's a will, there's a way. And in India also we have so many institutions who are doing this, you know,
Very true.
who have like an enthusiastic. Anand is a good example. Our alumni, you know Anand, right?
Yeah, yes.
Anand Raju, they have a college in Bhimavaram, I think, Vishnu Dental College.
Vishnu Dental.
Yeah, they have like, I don't know, 7 or 8 microscopes or even more. Why? Because Anand is like dynamic. He's like the main clinical administrator there. And so he can make changes because the brother, you know, is the owner of the college, and so between the two they can make changes.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there is no higher person there to make changes. So that's a good example. Savita Dental College is a good example.
Even our KLE also has
Yeah.
5 microscopes.
There you go.
now.
Yeah.
It almost took 3 years to. I have literally. I was holding suction when I started teaching.
Yeah.
It is very difficult to
Yeah.
get the student, but I think once that culture sets in,
Yeah.
people start. The senior starts the junior.
Yeah.
But still, there is before meeting you, as I said, the way we think as a microscopic practice in the college, what is like you only hold the suction,
Yeah.
you only put the rubber dam. But then the way you showed us in your
Yeah.
center,
Yeah.
such a nicely trained assistant, which I think is a very integral part of microscopic practice.
Yeah.
That type of things I think is only you get to know when we come to your center.
So this assistant part is from Gary Carr.
Yeah.
So you can see Gary Carr has the same assistant for I don't know how many years.
Correct.
Joy.
Joy,
right?
Joy.
So when
But
he teaches,
will you have a Joy kind of assistant today?
so my
today?
Joy is Om Prakash.
So how many years he is there?
He's been around, I think, easily maybe 15 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that concept is Gary. Like Gary says
Yeah,
that it's
yeah.
not about you, it's about the assistant. So in Gary, when he was doing courses in Perth, I think he used to encourage clinicians to bring their assistants with them for the course.
Yes.
Right? So that's Gary Carr's philosophy. So a lot of the lessons we teach in the academy is courtesy Gary Carr. But of course, I didn't use his name in the online course and things like that because I didn't want someone to say that, I'm using his name to promote my course and things like that. That's the only reason I didn't mention.
understand.
But you know that you've come for the course. One of the first slides we put there
Yes.
is Gary Carr's,
Yeah.
and we give regards, gratitude, saying that it's because of this person that we have all this knowledge. So yeah, it's no secret that I'm like a huge fan of Gary Carr, and whatever we have been teaching is the message that's developed by him. I mean, amazing guy. I mean, to do what he did at that time, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, even I have seen his video where he says that he developed that ultrasonic tip
It's
and
just
nobody believed him. He went to some dental college or ADA and people said, this is bullshit, you can't work. It doesn't work.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
then it
he
took over.
was crucified. I mean, even by so-called big names in AAE, he got crucified. And but the kind of to have that kind of vision and to execute it, it's just an amazing guy. And I was part of TDO for a few years, and then so I got to witness what he's done in terms of community. And probably the best group of clinicians, endodontists worldwide, I would say at that point in time, at least I don't know how it's now, were in TDO, like the best clinicians. You can, like, if you are part of that group, you have no option other than to raise your bar because everybody's doing such unbelievable work. Sooner or later, you want to rise to that level, So that way, he has set up something amazing. He's built a community. It's just amazing. Very inspirational guy. Yeah, no doubt about it.
When you listen to Microscope, watch these videos, it doesn't make any sense. Quite difficult, I feel.
Yeah.
All these. I remember I was speaking to one dealer of Microscope. I had no idea during that time, and everybody, even today in many colleges I visit, that 0.4 step magnification changer, you ask them, what is it? What does the magnification? The basic answer is it is 4x.
Correct.
Nobody is aware that there is a equation.
Yes.
There is such a lack of knowledge about microscope. I remember in Davangere, when the question was asked, I used to write that triangle of magnification, illumination instruments, and all those things.
Yeah.
Never understood it. The best way to learn things today is by doing it.
Yeah.
But I think somewhere it lacks. That is where it is lacking.
So ideas everybody has. The problem is the execution, always. Everyone knows the template.
Yeah.
It's not that difficult. If
Yes.
I were to tell you how to learn microscopes, it's very easy. That's it. Within half an hour I can tell you everything.
Exactly.
But the problem is the execution. That's where the community comes. That's where the constant mentoring comes. You know this, right? So people come for our courses. It's not the course. After the course, they keep messaging, I have this problem, I have that problem. And we go on for years together. That's the real thing. But some people don't even take the next action. They just come for the course and that's it. They don't even bother after that. So it's the execution is always the problem. It's never the idea. Everybody has amazing ideas. If you listen to this conversation we had, we will get so inspired with so many ideas in what you're saying, what I'm saying. Some thoughts come out. But then how much of those thoughts are we going to act? We don't know. Yeah. So it's very easy. For your channel is a good example. Everyone looks at Suresh channel. 51,000 subscribers. All he did is start a YouTube channel and chuma keep yapping. Let me also do it. They can't do it because it's not the talking and the yapping. It's the discipline to keep doing episode after episode for so many years.
Yes.
That's the problem. That's the difficult part. It's not the content. Content everybody does.
Yes.
But can they have the discipline to keep doing it?
Very.
That's why you are enjoying the benefits of that.
Yeah. Tomorrow is 50 years birthday. Advance birthday wishes, sir.
Thank you.
How does it feel to be at this stage where you have achieved so much? And what is the plan for next 10 years?
Well, firstly, I don't think I've achieved a lot. I mean, because I've always been very self-critical of myself. And I have a problem receiving compliments. Even if somebody says something nice, I don't take it that easily. I'll always find something negative to say in return.
Okay.
So if somebody says, "Oh, you've done so good," I'll say, "Yeah, it's
but
okay."
you have done it.
Yeah, but
we have been hearing your name since our post-graduation. I never thought I will sit here one day and get an opportunity to talk to you.
Yeah, but you say that. But I think some people are wired. I think it's some sort of a defect that even when someone says something nice, we don't accept it graciously. We'll always give some sort of a counter answer saying, yeah, it's all
I'm
good.
saying it genuinely. I'm really saying it genuinely.
So, so it's a defect. So it's a problem. I can't take compliments, and every time someone says nice things genuinely, I will always have something to say in return. I will say, yeah, but so when you say you achieved so much, my first instinct always is like, no. So anyway, if you say so, I accept it.
No, I genuinely feel.
If you say so, I accept it. I'm very grateful you feel that way. But to be honest, I mean, how do we move ourselves up, go on growing is you always look at people who are like at a plane far higher than you, right? So for me, I would look at inspiring people like Gary Carr. I mean, if you put Gary as your reference point, you can be rest assured you will never ever reach there. So I would do that rather than keep on resting on my laurels. I would put some individual like that as my reference point, because that will keep me grounded for the rest of my life. Because chances are, even if I spend another 40 years, I probably will not go anywhere close to what Gary has achieved, right? So that's the way I look at it. But it's like this. It's interesting you mentioned this. So the right way I would put this is, there is a phrase I learned, I think, during one of the training programs, which is non-dental. I think it was in NLP, where they talk about chunking in and chunking out. I think this is the terminology. So basically what it means that any given situation, we human beings should have the ability to zoom in and zoom out at a macroscopic level and at a microscopic level. An example, you and me are sitting here and talking. Where are we sitting? We are sitting in a building in Indiranagar. Where is Indiranagar? We zoom out. Indiranagar is part of Bangalore. Zoom out again. Where is Bangalore? It's in Karnataka. Zoom out. Where is Karnataka? It's in India. It's in India. Zoom out. Where is India? It's part of the world. Part of Asia. Zoom out again. Whole world. Zoom out. Earth is part of the solar system. Keep zooming. And then in that whole perspective, you try to find Suresh and Siju. They're nowhere in the picture. So in reality, we are so insignificant. That's one way of looking at it.
Yeah.
But if we have that kind of attitude where we are not insignificant, we are not significant at all, and whatever you and I do, irrespective of whatever you and I do, 5 years, 2 years or 5 years after our death, nobody will remember us. That is if we are lucky. Chances are within 2 years, people will even forget that.
2 years also, I think, is a
2 years
longer
also, people will forget
Maybe
that we exist.
6 month.
Yeah.
6 month people.
So it's very
will
fleeting. So in reality, it doesn't matter what you do, what I do. Once we are gone, we are gone. Nobody will care what we did. So we are not as significant as we think we are. But the problem is, if you have that kind of pessimistic attitude, then it's very difficult to get up in the morning and do something. Because in the end, it doesn't matter anyway, so why should we bother? So this is one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is go up microscopic level. Who am I? I'm Siju. Who are you? You're Suresh. Okay, what are we? We are a human being. And our human body is made up of so many cells and the processes. And even if we try to understand how this whole body functions, it's almost impossible to understand. It's such a miracle, this whole phenomenon on how this world exists, how the human race exists, and how things move from day to day. It's just unbelievable, you know. And you look at something as small as this mic, the amount of people who are involved in creating this microphone is at least maybe 800 people if you analyze each small part of this microscope. So the miracle of life is amazing if you go to a microscopic level. So we call this chunking in, deeper and deeper and deeper. If we were to analyze, dissect each part of our body, you can go down to the basic cell. You know, so there's no end to how much you can dissect each part.
Yes.
And if you go down to the smallest cell, and then you look at how many millions of billions of cells are there in this body, you look at even me as an individual, we are so amazing, right? This is the other extreme. So now, if you are in that extreme, then you tend to become egoistic. Oh, I'm so important, this, that. So I think the right path is somewhere in the middle, where on one hand, yes, you are important, and we can bring about change, even if it is for few individuals. That change matters. So we are important, and what we do matters. And when you get up and we do things where we have to be what we call an instrument, a force for good. This is a good phrase I like. Whatever you're doing, we need to be a force for good. You know, do things where it's something good for everybody. This is, I think, the only metric I would look at. You know, be a force for good. And if you're like that, then the ego is on check. And on the other extreme, it's always good once in a while to zoom out and realize that you're not that significant as you think you are. So don't get too carried away by these things and what people say about things like that, because in the end, it doesn't matter.
So do you wish to learn something apart from dentistry? Do you have any plans, goals?
Goals have always been Vipassana meditation. That's been a huge learning platform for me. I started Vipassana meditation in 2003, and it's been going on ever since. I try to go on one 10-day retreat every year.
Okay.
And the only time I had a break was during COVID. So other than that, every year I try to go once for like a 10-day retreat. I don't know whether you're aware of Vipassana. Vipassana is like...
I'm not much.
maybe
it is the time.
Vipassana is basically the meditation technique that Gautama Buddha taught, but it's been taught in Vipassana centers without the religious part.
Okay.
Where you don't need to be a Buddhist to learn it. You can be any religion, you can just check in there and you learn meditation and then you practice it. So that's been a huge component in my life. Like, it's been a central path by which I make a lot of decisions based on those principles. So that's my spiritual part, and that is something that I hope to continue. So as far as bucket list goes, no, I don't really have any bucket lists. Bucket lists are more to do with taking care of the dependents, and once that's done, try and focus a lot on the meditation part. These are probably the only two things. Beyond that, I don't really have any bucket lists as such. The endo part is basically just trying to give back something to the profession, which has given me so much. Because everything that that has happened so far is because of the profession. So endodontics has given me so much. So I just want to give back something so that you leave it slightly better than what you found it. And that would kind of tick one list for me. And that's about it. I don't have anything more than that.
It was amazing to listen to your thoughts, sir, and finally I got an opportunity to ask all these questions.
Thank you, Suresh. Time just flew, and that shows that I didn't even know where an hour and a half went.
I really enjoyed listening to, as always. But I think this is the first time I have got such an opportunity to be so close to you and listen to all your thoughts.
My pleasure, Suresh.
I want to thank you once again, wholeheartedly, sir, for giving me your time. I'm sure this podcast will always remain. People will watch it, and whether we are here, not here, this podcast will be always inspiring to the students.
That's the beauty of the internet. Once you put it, it's out there,
Yeah.
and nobody knows the distance it's going to travel, who's going to see, who's
Very
going to
true.
influence, and that's the beauty of the internet. So I'm really glad that you made this content. And again, I want to congratulate you on the work that you're doing with Aspire 32. Keep doing more and more episodes, because you never know who it's helping. So I want you to keep doing this. And just remember that there's lots of people who see this and get motivated. Sometimes they may not tell you in person, but sometimes you meet them many years later,
Yeah.
and then they might approach you and say, Suresh, sir, it's been really useful. Thank you for doing this. It really helped me. So you never know the extent of your influence. So please continue to do what you're doing. And I hope that our paths will cross again sometime in the future.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you.